Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Mariah. We'll just give it a second for people to join in. Just want to say thanks to everybody who joined last night. That was super, super fun. And today we are going to have a whole different conversation. When I started this Instagram, I was really wanting to focus on sex and love. And somehow throughout the year, we've kind of lost a little bit of the love talk. So I'm really excited today to talk about love with y'all and what is the definition of love. And I have a special guest who I'm going to bring on right now. If you can see, Nick, how to request to be in the video, I will let you on and we can get going. So once again, welcome. And my name is Mariah, and we're going to talk about love today and what is the definition. So we'll just give it 1 second, see if we can get you on here. Nick, you might have to log out. Ah, yes, here you are. Cool. Exciting. Hey.
What's going on?
How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, fine.
How's it all going?
Going so far so good. Can't complain.
Good.
How about you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Yeah, I get that.
Cool. Well, welcome to whoever's here. My name's Mariah, and we have a special guest, Nick, from Forbidden Fruit Podcast, here to talk about love with us. So I guess first, I'm just curious if you can just kind of like tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you get into doing this podcast, and just what's your interest in love, and like how did we even get here?
Got you. So I'm originally from Arkansas, but I moved to Colorado. So I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado right now. And so with me, I would say over the past 5 years, I'm a father. I became a father 5 years ago, and I think that whole process, the situation that I was in at the time, really forced me to grow. It was never like this. Okay, this is the person I want to be. Let me like consciously make these steps and get to this point. It was just I kind of stumbled my way to it as a result of me just trying to handle the situation that I was in. And so with COVID and everything that was going on, I was contacting people and getting in touch with people over social media more than what I would before.
Yeah.
And then I had this conversation with this one young lady. We were talking about depression or whatever, and then I was just kind of talking about my experience with that and just other things. And it was just like after book recommendation, audio recommendation, experience, and I kind of the first I think I had all the information, and so for
Sorry,
me
I'm
saying it out loud, it
background.
just no, you get so for me it was like wow, like I put a lot of work in, like, and it was evident in all the advice and information I was given, and so then I had a cousin of mine that just started a podcast, kind of, her first state thing. And then I was on there and it was just, again, like all this information came just flowing out. And I was like, wow, I'm at the point where I probably need to start giving some of this back because for me, it wasn't for that purpose. When you grow, you don't do it for other people, you do it for yourselves. But it
Totally.
was my first chance of kind of taking a step back and like looking at the big painting and how far it came. And so I came up with the idea of Forbidden Fruit Podcast, talking to my cousin of about, let's just say if I took the story of Adam and Eve and take it from a negative into a positive. And so instead of biting in the apple, it's like, damnation, it's, with the knowledge of love, the knowledge of whatever. And so it just kind of went from there. And here we are.
Yeah, cool. It's exciting. Cool. Well, let's just get right into it. I just want to say that I think obviously, it's interesting because I have like been in love, or, I love. My first tattoo is a heart. Like I'm all about the love, but yet like this last week after listening to your podcast, I've been like thinking about it like way more. Like what is it? Like, and how do you define it? Like, because we have it with
Right.
our family and our friends, and but it's like what is it? And like how, like what is it actually? And so the whole last week I've been like super like focused on trying to like read and think and just talk to people and whatever. So I'm really
Right.
excited to hear your definitions of it. But just want to say, I think, one, everybody's definition is super different, and that's totally
Right.
understandable. And that like, they're not constant, like they can change. And I think that that's like another important thing. Like it depends on where you are in your life and different circumstances of like what you interpret love to be. Um,
Right.
so I just want to say that. And I'll just say one more thing, and then I would love to just jump right in. So, I mean, an intense feeling of deep affection is like the most basic definition of love. Um,
Right.
and it should be seen not as a feeling, but as an
Right.
enacted emotion. So it's to feel and act lovingly, not just like this emotion. It's actually also the action. So I just found that interesting. Um, so yeah, go for it. Tell us. I know you have a lot to say. We're all ears. So just go ahead and give it to us.
Yeah. So love for me is not for me it's not an emotion at all. Uh, I think in the audio that I made, I used an example of like my son. And so when he was, an infant, like I know obviously I love my son, but when he was an infant, like I didn't physically enjoy getting up at, all these odd times of the night to take care of him. But I did it because I love him. So that in my mind, the action of love or the beginning of the expression of love is when the feeling goes away. Because
Yeah.
it's easy for me to do anything when I feel good about it, right? Like it's easy for me to go to the gym when I'm excited about it. But when I don't feel like going, but I drag my ass in there anyway, like that's considered dedication. So even with love, it's like you can easily say you love me if I'm making you feel great. But
Yeah.
if I'm on your nerves and I'm pissing you off, then at that point, do you still commit to the idea of, yeah, I love you? Because if you don't, then that's the condition. You have to make me feel this way in order for me to feel this way about you. And so love can be unconditional if it's based on how it makes a person feel. Because you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Because think about it like this. So you know
This
how
is.
the
Can you just hold on one second? I can't believe this is love. This is not my child, but my cat is wild out. Just toss him out of here. Magic. Get out of here, dude. He never does that ever. Okay, continue. I'm
and
here.
so think about the pressure of having to be perfect, like like people please. I mean people have had the experience of I have to behave this way in order to be accepted. I have to be, even if it's somebody that I'm not, to be accepted. So imagine having to do that for love.
Yeah.
And so if you have to so the stress of that, because everyone for whatever reason wants love. It's almost like a necessity. You know what I mean? Whether you have it or not, the one thing that we all agree on is that we want it. So imagine the one thing that we all know we all want. You have to now walk this fine line and this tightrope for you to acquire it. So the stress of that of conditional love is not, in my mind, it's not helpful, because it's like, at what point can I just be me and you accept me for me? And you understand, like, I'm gonna make a mistake. I'm gonna do something that's gonna piss you off. I'm gonna do something that may embarrass you. But do you still love me the same way you did before? You know what I mean? But even then with that, that's where the work comes in. It's like, yo, like I'm going to commit the idea. I'm not going to judge your whole life, for me, my whole 34 years of existence based on this moment. Like I know enough about you that you are a good person. Like, I've seen enough about you to be convinced that you're a good person. So I'm not going to judge the entire movie off of this trailer that you just showed. And so the freedom, the liberation that comes with knowing, look, I can make a mistake and still be accepted and still be loved is huge. Because
Okay,
even
so what about like I'm just playing devil's advocate here. So what about like you have a family member that you love like deeply and you've loved them your whole life and you accept them for who they are and then you find out they like were like molested a child or some horrible example. What happens then?
so at that point, it's like, so my brother is like a perfect example of this. So if I came to my brother and I was like, look, I killed somebody today, the first thing that he would ask me is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like it's not, yeah, and yeah, it's like that's a horrible thing to do. But at the same time, like people don't just do things bad just because. You know what I mean? I feel like so in that example, like if someone, every time I've heard of a story of somebody like molesting a child, if you look through the history of that person, at some point, most cases that person has experienced it along the way. Like no
Yeah.
one, like a child is not going to grow up with this idea of doing something like that. You know what I mean? So at some point along their lives, that has to have been introduced in a way to where that is some way have become normal to them, whether it be like a defense mechanism or whatever. So I just don't believe that someone is just wired to do anything bad like that.
Right, or
So
reaction to trauma, that they won't experience on their own.
say what?
Or yeah, like their reaction to growing up in a traumatic or abusive household and not seeing that as becoming normal, being normal or whatever.
Right, right. And so it's like, so even with that though, so so that person still wants and desires love, like regardless of what it is that they do. So it's like now like think of that, like thinking about losing everything that you love. like losing everyone that at one point said I care about you and I love about you. I mean, that in my mind is traumatizing.
Yeah.
So
No, for sure.
right. So I feel like abandoning somebody that you because it's not like this thing you can just do like whimsically. Like it's not like a casual, oh, I love you. Like you have to within yourself understand a person, not necessarily understand a person, but have seen enough in them to be convinced to your core that they're good and it's unshakable. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be sexual, or whatever. But even then, like that, in my mind, it's a beautiful thing because everyone, I think someone in a situation they may have acted out in a way that's negative is needs the love the most. You know what I mean? Like that's not the time to abandon a person when they have committed this heinous act. But again, with society, they're quick to do that. Like it's like, okay, I was watching a documentary on it was this dude named Chris Watt. I'm sure you heard about it in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this I mean he pretty much he killed his family. And so in my mind, the first thing I thought was, what happened to this dude to do this? Because he had like no history of like not even a traffic ticket. But so he went from zero to like pretty much murdering his whole family, and everyone was like, "Well, this dude is a monster." No one, it's like no one along the way was like, "What happened to this man for this to be normal to him?" You know what I mean? And I'm not saying what he did should be just justified, but at the same time, it's like, yo, people just don't come out of nowhere with that. And even from like a social standpoint, you should at least want to know what happened to him so you can at least identify like the triggers and signs and tales to prevent somebody to get to that point. So I just
Oh,
feel
I
like,
agree. I mean, I'm a social worker, and that's like obviously we learned about that. You know what I mean? But I guess here's the question. So, like with family, like I mean, what I put my mom through in high school and college, and even after, and even still sometimes is like probably not, not the coolest thing that I could have done to her, but I wasn't conscious of it. Like just making her worried and all of these things, right? So obviously she still loves me, and
right.
family stuff that happens all the time, right? And even friends. I mean, you get into fights with friends, whatever happens, and you still love them. But I guess my question is if we're talking about romantic love, it seems to be, and this maybe is your point, that it's less unconditional sometimes, where it's like if you come home late, I'm leaving, or if you cheat on me one time, we're done. Like there seems to be some sort of difference in the difference, and maybe it's like, I mean, if you're blood related, there's also that. But like, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on like why does romantic love seem to be less unconditional than family or friend love?
Because so I don't think that it's a different. I think this is where you and I differ. I don't think that there's a difference in love. Either you do or you don't. Because to say if we were together and I saw all these wonderful things in you and we were romantic in a relationship didn't work out, imagine how you would feel if I came to you and said, you know everything I told you about how I felt about you back then? Nah, like that's trash. But I think what you're talking about is when you introduce intimacy into the love equation. So like it's a blend of love and intimacy because intimacy is vulnerability. So yeah, obviously whenever you make yourself vulnerable, you open up yourself to the idea of being hurt, right? Like to say initiating sex. Let's just say I walked in and I tried to, I was naked for the first time and they gave me like a micro expression that they didn't really like what my body looked like. That would destroy me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like you're literally opening yourself up in a way to be hurt with when you're talking about romantic love. So I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
But again, like even for me, like, and I was like this for the longest, where I would not be vulnerable as a means of self preservation and self defense. Like you can't hurt me if I don't let you in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that's a lonely life. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and this was one of my questions, but it reminds me to ask it right now. Is like, what do you think? Why do you think? I mean, we've all been hurt, especially like our age. Like most of us have been hurt more than once, and really, like I don't really know anybody who hasn't at this point. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, but my question is, why does it seem like, and it does seem like this, that men have such a negative association with love? They don't want to fall in love. They say you're a pussy if you fall in love. Love sucks. You're very different, and I'm just telling you from being out in the world. And I mean, I don't want a relationship. I don't want love. Fuck that. Like what do you think? Is it because they're just hurt? I mean, we've been hurt too. Like what do you think that the men in society, like that they have such a negative association with love,
Well,
that they don't want it?
I think society is not accepting of a man being hurt though. You know what I mean? It's like when, like if I show any kind of expression outside of anger, Like it's like it's shunned. Like I can be pissed off and I can be mad, but anything outside of that is like a no go. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then you get labeled, whatever. And then I think honestly that kind of plays into toxic masculinity, or whatever, because it's like you have all of the emotions turned inward that you can't express. And yeah, it's gonna come out aggressive. It's gonna come out like, well, no, fuck that, I don't want to love or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna push people away as a means of protecting yourself. But I think, but I feel like it's becoming more acceptable because it's like people are aware of vulnerability. People are more understanding of that or whatever. But I mean, what you're saying is, I feel is the reaction of that over time. Like be a man, suck it up. Like don't express yourself. You can't be hurt. And so I think that what you're experiencing, or that your experiences with other men, is like that's their defense mechanism to prevent you from getting close enough to them in their mind so you can hurt them. But then in a way, I guess in a way, like almost like demasculating them in a society standpoint. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think during this last year, actually, I mean, I've seen it just the way that like women and my friend, like we've been able to process it and talk about it more. And I've just seen men that are acting like they're fine when they're not. And there is this like double standard and stigma, and like, I think we're slowly starting to get it to be like where men can go to therapy and that's more open and common, and like work on their issues.
Right.
So I think we're like slowly making progress, but I do think it's a really big problem in our society. And I think it leads to like, I mean, I used to be a bartender, like, or stripper too, but whatever, like lots of old, lonely, single men. You go to any bar and it's all old single men sitting there who maybe fucked up their marriages, who never found love because they were, and now this is their life. And so I think it's
Right.
actually like really sad because I think a lot of men, I mean, and women, but go through life and they don't have that because of all of these things we're talking about.
Right. And even with that though, I don't feel like intimacy is exclusive to relationships. So an example, like so with you and I'm not sure if you noticed this, but I feel like we've kind of done it a little bit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like with my Instagram account being jacked up. Like me telling you about that and how I feel about that is like vulnerability. Now it's
Yeah.
not big, but at the same time, like if you take these baby steps and it's kind of like reciprocated over time, like saying like I had an interview and I was worried, I was nervous or whatever. Like us kind of having that back and forth and slowly edging towards like, okay, one day I may tell you something big about me. And so we can have this connection that not necessarily like sexually based, but we can have like a friendship to where we are just so in sync to the point where me and you could be together and we can see something and I automatically know what you're thinking. Just
Yeah.
because I've I've learned enough about you. You've exposed like the deep intimacies and depths of what makes you you, to the point where it's like I can understand you to a point where I can flow with you. It's like jazz, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's
You become in tune with each other because because you're vulnerable.
right. And
Yeah.
so I think that's another. I feel like that's the next domino to fall, is to understand that you can be intimate with somebody and you can also love somebody on that level and not be romantic. You know what I mean? Like it's just, in my mind, like that's kind of like the best friendships in my mind. Like when I was back in Arkansas, it was like a handful of us. It was like five or six of us who would always hang out, and it was almost kind of like a sitcom. If some person will crack a joke and then another person will pick up where they left off, and somebody will reference a movie, and we was all like just and it was like Jack. It was like we were just comedically in sync or whatever. And it was honestly like that was like the best time of my life. Now I mean
Yeah.
that fell off because I moved away, and we all kind of grew apart because we got kids and lives, and we're still cool and everything. But like you can harness that on the day to day. It's
Oh,
not.
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, my crew from Puerto Rico, none of us are really from Puerto Rico, but we all met there and we all just like are like fully ourselves, like a
Yeah.
billion% and wild. And now some people are married, the rest, some people are not, but like we still are just like this because we like it took time and we just built this. And it was also just that like connection of like, we didn't even go through the like, can we be vulnerable? We just were like ourselves from the beginning. And so we just got like super close and we weren't afraid as much of getting hurt as if it had been like maybe somebody you're trying to date. We weren't,
Right.
it wasn't really like that. It was just like, let's meet up, let's go to the beach. And so there wasn't that fear. So I think that let us just be more vulnerable from the beginning.
Now how did that make you feel though? Like experiencing that when you was going through that, like how did that make you feel?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine having that on it. So imagine having that on top of romantic relationships.
Right. And
Imagine
that's the
having,
goal. That's,
Well, imagine having that synchronicity or that synergy with somebody sexually, to where it's like we can look at something or we can like experience something or whatever, and it's just like, let's go. Or I just, for whatever reason, it's like, you don't have to tell me what you want. I don't have to tell you what I want. And it's just like sexual jazz. You know what I mean? It's like this give and take where it's just, you're not saying you'll never eliminate communication, but being so in tune with a person to where it's like you're one person, it's like one body, one mind or whatever. You know what I mean? So I feel like that for me is kind of like why, I don't know, like sex in my mind has become more interesting, but not necessarily from the physical standpoint, but from the mental aspect of it. Because I feel like if I prioritize like that connection, like one loving somebody, just period, like regardless of what works out, what happens, and then like building that intimacy through being vulnerable, and then you put the cherry on top with sex. I feel like the world hasn't even seen like the possibility of what a relationship can be because we're so guarded and we're bought into this society's perspective of what love and intimacy is. Although like the divorce rate in America is like in the 70s, 80%. Like no one should be giving advice about relationships. We should all be trying to figure each other out and learn and give and do what we're doing right now. Like share our perspectives. Like, yo, this worked, this didn't work. I messed this up. This really worked or whatever. So I feel like just being more open and being not necessarily just casually giving yourself away, like running up to somebody and just telling them the most intimate details about you, but like us, like yo, like you really like y'all feel this way about whatever, like I had a bad day and made me sad or whatever, like doing that slowly over time with just people that you feel like has earned your trust and has shown themselves to be genuine, then your life could be full of love. It doesn't have to be like this gamble, like, well damn, am I gonna fuck up and am I gonna lose this person because I pissed him off? You know what I
right, or
mean?
being controlling or being codependent or all of these things that happen, or
Right.
choosing with somebody that's totally bad for you or all, toxic situations. I mean, yeah, that's the ideal, right?
Right. Because think about it like this. So imagine like if I told you, this is say down, a month or two down the road, I was like, Mariah, yo, I love you. And I don't want anything like it was never like this. I want something from you. I'm trying to sleep with you. I'm trying to get you to look at me this way. Like it's non-manipulative at all. I feel like even if you was like, yo, like I don't feel the same way. I don't look at you the same way. And me still saying, you know what, that's still okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like I feel like that's what the world. I feel like that's what the world is missing. Because I feel like even if you didn't like me or didn't see any good in me or whatever, like I feel like even for you that having someone that's to unconditionally say, yo, like I love you anyway. I think that would make it even more powerful for you because it's like, yo, like this is not something that I've done for. You know what I'm saying? It's like this has been given to me freely.
Right. Right. And yeah. I mean, so, but then the question comes in is like, what do you think changes when sex gets involved? So say, well, first, that's one question. And then my other question is, do you think that if you have sex before you're getting, before you're, getting this intimate and vulnerable, that it ruins it? Like, I guess I'm just curious if you think the sexual part can either, like, obviously it can make it better if you have all of this, but I'm saying, do you think that puts a damper in getting to really know somebody if you have sex early? And just how does that change things when you do have sex? Because we can be super vulnerable and stay friends, and we're probably never going to have any issues. But sometimes, when sex gets involved, it does sometimes change things. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
It depends on what the goal is. I feel like if is it just like y'all just like you trust each other and you feel safe with this person, so like you can like come and go, like and have sex whenever you're comfortable, or is it like are you building to something? So
Right.
for
Well, I
me,
think a lot of people, they think now that we've had sex, now it has to mean something more, or now we need to be together, or put a label, or all of these things, especially when there's intimacies. So my girl
right?
says releasing the ego.
Yeah. So, but it's the thing though. Like, sex in my mind is like probably one of the highest forms of vulnerability anyway. Regardless of what is for, if it's just for like yo, you're just trying to get off or whatever, or you're trying to like you're with somebody that you care about, like it's still honestly like the highest form of vulnerability for me. Because like I said before, it's like yo, like if I came out and let's just say somebody didn't like my body, like yo, like I'm gonna crawl back into the bathroom in a fetal position and like yo, like what I mean, like I'm gonna feel exposed, I'm gonna feel naked or whatever. And so let's just say I don't know, like so I don't know, like it's just or critiquing somebody based on sex. You know what I mean? Like yo, like this is what you are worth to me because the sex for me was A, B, and C or whatever. You know what I mean? So like that in my mind is like it's a form of vulnerability. So, but I feel like if you introduce that too early when you're trying to build with somebody, then it can kind of get hazy because it's like, well, damn, what is it? Like, what are we working on? For my mind, it's like it kind of, I call it evidence tampering. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're dating somebody, you're in that discovery phase, right? So when you introduce sex, it's like it turns everything into like an emotional lens. So it's like it might show me, it might make me perceive something in a way that not might necessarily be the case if I wasn't having sex with you. You know what I mean? Or shit. Well, what if I'm just yo, I just want to have sex, and I hit you up, and now in a way, I mean, although it's not objectifying you, like I can still care about you, but then just want to have sex. But in a way, I've kind of objectified you in a way. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, so it's like, and I'm not saying it's a for sure way to make this work. But for me, in my mind, it's like, yo, look, if I'm really, if you show me the potential, if we've shown the potential of building something beautiful, then at least in my mind, like I want to get to the point where, like, all right, we've committed to the point where, yo, we're gonna be together. I know I'm not necessarily married, but like at the point, like, yo, we are committed to working this shit out. And then at that point, it's like, okay, you can take the governor off because it's like, all right, we're in it. You mean like, you know what I'm saying?
So I guess I have two questions now. So when would you like if you're starting to have a connection with somebody, like when can you have that conversation of like instead of just sleeping together because that might be kind of what seems like the next step or whatever, like how do you have or when do you think you can have that conversation of like we're really vibing, can you see this going anywhere, are you even interested in having a relationship, and like when do you even have those conversations, that's the first question.
I think it's just whenever you feel bold enough to ask.
I mean, like,
Because
if you meet somebody and you like hit it off after two times, like, can you be like, I think I kind of like you. Can we start this going? I mean, what, like, tell me, what do you think?
I don't think it's a rule. So for me personally, like I'd fill it out longer. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Yeah, that was kind of an extreme, but just to see, yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I would honestly, I would just for me, I would play it by ear. But at the same time, like it's not like a specific timeline. Because I mean, I've heard relationships. It's almost like love at first sight, and I've seen it where people have known each other forever, and it's just like down the road, it's like, oh, we are meant to be together. So it's
No,
no rule, but
obviously. So
right. But
do you think you could sleep with somebody the first time and turn into a really healthy, positive, vulnerable, beautiful relationship?
it would be a speed bump. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it would be a mental and emotional hurdle to jump over. Because if
Explain.
I could, because if I meet you and I don't really know you, then at that point in my mind, like it's just sex. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's like, how do I separate that? You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't know. It's probably just me, but it's like if I can't objectify you in a way, and then also like have like what I'm saying, like lean towards that at the same time. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like I don't know. Like I don't think it's a set answer. You know what I mean? It would be hard, but I don't think it's impossible. And I'm just talking about me specifically.
Yeah. And I mean, I think me as somebody who has slept with people right away and people telling me you shouldn't do that, you're never going to find your dude if you do that. Me saying, I hear what they're saying and I'm hearing what you're saying. And me also being like, but this is me. This is a part of me. And that isn't all of me. And yes, it might change it so they don't stick around long enough to get to know me afterward, or I might leave before I get to know them or whatever. But I'm just like from a whole other perspective, it's just like,
Right.
it's interesting.
But at the same time, I think that's like the beautiful aspect of it. Like it's like everyone can have their own ways of getting to this point. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's a certain way. I mean, for me, I'm just talking about me because it's like as a guy, I'll be honest. Like if I have sex with somebody on the first night, it's like okay, that was sex. But I don't know. Like I mean, like you may be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like if it gets to that point down the road, like it's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think it really matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and somebody's saying depends on the person and what they want in their dating life at the time, and I think that that's really true.
Right.
Because I mean, I guess it's also like, do we always know what we really want? Is another question.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point.
Because
That's a
I think
good
a lot
point.
of people say they want a relationship, but are you really ready to like make those changes, put in the effort, really ask the questions, get to know somebody, spend your time, put people aside, like really do that,
Right.
And I think that that's why so many people are single now, is that they just are lazy and they don't put any time or energy into ever getting to know anybody.
But
And then
that's, I
they,
mean, but that's like the fear of being hurt, not willing to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? Because it's like, so even with like online dating, so to speak, I can, let's just say, I always, whenever I connect with somebody, there's always something in the back of my mind when I make the decision to kind of cut everybody off. Like, damn, did I do
yeah.
the right thing? Did I make the right decision? So even with you, like you said, if you were dating somebody and you had a couple of other guys you were talking to, at some point, it's like when you make the decision to commit, you don't know what's going to happen. Like that relationship is trash. And then the other two dudes can go off and like get married and have the most beautiful relationship ever.
Like all my ex-boyfriends are married with kids and they like cheated on me, but whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
But
Um,
you never know what experience is going to trigger somebody to be ready for something like that. Like, so for me, like if you asked me 5 years ago, like what would it take for you to be a better person, I would never in my right mind tell you, go like get a girl pregnant you ain't had no business being with. But that's what it took for me though. And I would never recommend that to anybody. And obviously the situation is not ideal, but it got me to where I am. And in my mind, it's a beautiful thing. Because I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you 5 years ago.
and I will tell you, as a 35-year-old woman who wants kids, and a lot of these dudes on dating apps have kids, and some people are like, I'm like, oh, okay, these guys actually they're not like you by any means, but I can see there's a difference because they either grew up from having the kid and are interested in, other things than whatever, or they didn't, and then that's a big sign too. And so I think there's something to be said about men who have children, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It,
Okay, let's get back a little bit back to more love definition. Or like tell me more just about what you think love is, or how do you know when you're feeling it? How, just share whatever you feel like sharing.
okay. So my definition of love is it's well, I guess so for me it's like I can when you I had it written down. So my definition of love is like a unwavering belief that someone is a good person that cannot be changed. It's like an unconditional commitment to the fact that this person, regardless of what they may or may not do and what's in it or may not be in it for me, like this is a good person. So that's in my mind, like that's the unconditional aspect of it. But as far as like, I mean, but again, like, we talking about love, like being like love and intimacy, or just like love in general.
I mean, we can talk about both, but I feel like let's focus a little more on the intimacy part.
So I guess it just, I mean, I don't know, like that again, like that, I'm not sure. So I honestly like because ever since I've had this understanding of what love is, like I haven't experienced it like the intimacy and love again. But I have with like just ordinary people, like like regular relationships. So a
Mm-hmm.
perfect example, and I'll say this because I know she's not on here. So my trainer, so I have a trainer that I was working on to do like a physique competition or whatever. So when I first met her, I was kind of going through like a bit of a depression or whatever. And so me going to the gym was kind of like a way for me to like, all right, let me get a goal so I can like get my ass off the couch and not, be in bed all day. And so I had a guy introduce me to her, and it was like the look in her eyes. It was just like so much passion, so much joy, so much acceptance, so much, like she was like, I can, I believe in you can do this. And so she literally took a cat that was like crawling out the bed to like energized and like excited about this thing that I would never have done prior to talking to her. Because in my mind, it's like, yo, like when it was brought to me, I was like, I'm not about to be on a stage in front of a bunch of people in my drawers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a very like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a very private, like, like shy person when it comes to stuff like that. But when I talked to her, it was like, yo, like I can do this. Like I believe in myself. Like she believes in me. And so my mind is like, yo, like how can she not be a good person? Like how, like this, like to have this in you, like to have this capability and this passion and this love and this, and people are like drawn to her. It's like, yo, like how can you not be a good person? And so for me, I never told her this, and I'm not sure if I ever would, but it's like I love her.
Mm-hmm.
Cause it's like even if she like went out and killed a man tomorrow, like yo, like what did he do? Like that's gonna be my first reaction. Cause you're not like this. You're probably like the sweetest, kindest, most gentlest, passion, genuine person I've ever met. So like what the hell did this person do to you? What situation was you in for this to happen? So I've experienced more of that along just like the day to day, but at the same time though, like I would never tell her that. Because
Yeah. I mean, but maybe that's like part of it is people starting to tell people that even if it's not romantic and even if this person you never see them again, even if they look at you like you're totally nuts, like starting to like normalize these feelings. I don't know.
that like, but that the best. But again, like that's my fear with the vulnerability though, because
Right.
it's like don't because I don't want to lose somebody that I love because I love them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but it's sad though because it's like yo, like that shouldn't be like a radical thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if I told like yo, like, I love you, she would probably look at me like yo, like what do you want from me? You trying to sleep with me? You trying to get something from me? Like what is
Yeah.
it? So it's like you have like these walls go up, and then it's like
Well, and that's the other thing because of our sexual culture. I think that like people just automatically go there. If you say you love somebody, especially of the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on your sexual preference, like
right,
that's where people go with it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's part of the problem is that's just like where our minds automatically go. You know,
right,
especially if just they have, you have good vibes, people just assume that that's what this person wants, which is
right.
not always true. The only thing I disagree, because I really do agree with everything you're saying, the only thing I don't fully agree on, and this maybe it's just like my background in social work and just like everything, that's an American thing too. Yeah, for sure, Angelina, for sure. I just don't believe in good person or bad person. So that's just where my like
Okay,
question mark comes in of like, yes, I can feel like, okay, this person has a good heart. Like I can maybe I just need to phrase it in a different way. Because to me, I don't really see people as like good or bad. I see people as like really, you know, been hurt. Like I just don't see it as good or bad. So I think that that's the only question or like thing I would.
so explain it. So are you saying that like I'm saying like it's a good person and a bad person?
No, I'm saying I don't think that. And
So
that's why
you
when you're
feel like
saying that like you love somebody because you see that they're a good person, whereas like I don't I don't see it so black and white as like good or bad people in general.
so I think we actually see it the same way. Like I'm not saying that I'm saying you're good as opposed to somebody else. It's just saying I have spent enough time with you to
Okay.
specifically see the good in you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
okay. Yeah.
And
That clarifies it for sure, for
I,
sure.
but
Latinos, Italians say they love you all the time. That is true. It's a very cultural thing. Very,
right.
very cultural. Very. Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious what
Um,
is your yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well I'm curious what your position is on that, like it being like a cultural thing.
Um, I mean, I've just lived in other countries where you just tell everybody you love each other all the time. Whereas
Right,
here, like, people might look at you differently.
right,
I mean, like, your friends you meet, I mean, everybody, like, constantly. So it is different. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's so obvious, but yeah.
right.
Um, the other thing I really think, like, I was trying to think about what my definition of love is, and like, this is one thing I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. A therapist one time told me this. She was pretty like strong about it too. She was like, you don't actually love someone else. You don't actually love the other person. She said you love how you feel when you're with them. That it's actually about you. And it's not actually this person who's super nice and super hot and super or whatever, or super deep or super smart or all the things that you know you think you love, but it's actually you love about what how you feel when you're around this person. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So wait. So were they saying that's what love is, or they were saying that to you, like
Yeah,
about?
like that you don't actually love the other person, that you actually love how you feel when you're with them.
So that's like a, I don't know. I mean, not to go off the extremes, but like that feels like a very like narcissistic, controlling perspective of love, right? It's kind of like it's like you make me feel this way, and that's why I love you. That's why I care about you. I'm not saying like you like when you're in love with somebody, like you don't get those feelings. But in my mind, it's like yo, like the only reason you're saying that you love somebody is based on how they make you feel, then like how is that unconditional? You know what I mean?
Yes, I hear what you're saying, but then I guess I can also see it as if, like, for example, like so many people are in relationships and they say they love this person, but really they feel insecure, they are depressed, they cry, they you know are jealous, they don't feel good, they feel I mean I've had really long-term relationships where I didn't feel safe, I was afraid, I was you know all of these things. So that's like that's not a selfish thing, that's actually a protecting your thing. And I think if people saw it more like that, maybe they would get out of relationships where they're not feeling happy and they're not feeling good and they're not feeling appreciated and they're feeling anxious or all of these things.
But did you
That's
still
why when a person really hurts you, that's why you feel differently. Yeah, because it
so
makes you feel a different way. And so, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
but did you still like so they made you feel unsafe, right?
Right?
You know what you're saying? But did you still feel like, did you love them though?
Oh,
Like
I
outside,
was totally in love with them, but when I look back on it, I was like, you were constantly worried every time they were out about cheating or about car wrecks from drinking. I mean, just like there was so much anxiety that I was feeling. And when I look back, like, yes, I thought I was really in love, but like it wasn't making me feel good. Do you know what I
right,
mean? Like my friends, I'm not going to spend time with friends, for example, forget romantic. If a friend is mean to me, which I've had some friends be mean to me, I don't want to be around them. I'm not gonna,
right,
that doesn't make me feel good. Do you know what I mean?
right.
Family is the whole other thing, but like, it's so it's like there's something that I just took that there's something out of that of like
But I feel like so. But do you, so when they do that thing to you that makes you feel or whatever, like do you now paint them as like, is that who they become in your mind? Like whatever this, how you made me feel or this thing that you've done, like is that now who they are to you?
not necessarily who they are at first. I think it builds up over time, and I've heard this like a lot, and the memes about it or whatever, where it's like women like when we've been like once we leave like we're gone because we've been like working through it for a long
Right,
time, and then once we leave guys are like, oh, I really
right,
fucked up. She was fucking amazing. And this is like a thing. I mean, I see so many people break up, the girls cry, we do whatever, and then we like are fine. And not just fine, like we're great because we are
right,
just like releasing all of that. Whereas men are like shit. Like
right.
and they're like slow on the uptake. I don't want to like be mean, but like sometimes it's
No,
like,
no,
dude, we were right there.
right.
Yeah, once we decide to leave, there's no changing that. And that's just real.
But that,
So
but that, I think that's immaturity not to appreciate that though. You know what I mean? So perfect example of this. I was dating this girl last year, or this woman last year, and she was kind of like everything that I wanted, although I didn't realize it. You know what I mean? Because it was like she was attractive, but it wasn't like if you asked me like, "Yo, what's your type?" It wouldn't have been her.
yeah,
But it was like we had like our first conversation. It was like 5 hours.
yeah,
Like she was, I mean, like a weekend, she would call me at work and say, "Hey, I got a few minutes. This is how I feel." Like all like the vulnerability was like off the rip. And in my mind, I was like, "Yo, like this is dope." And I even told her, I was like, "Honestly, yo, had I met you 5 years ago, I would not have had the maturity to appreciate you. You'd
yeah.
have been so weird to me, and you would have been like, you'd have been weird to me, and I would ultimately would have self-sabotaged the relationship because I would have convinced myself it was something wrong with you as opposed to something wrong with me."
Yeah.
And so it's like that what you're describing is just like immaturity, like straight up immaturity. You know what I mean? Because it's
Right,
like,
or just not being self-aware enough.
and
Because I feel like there's been times where like I'm like, wow, this guy really does have a lot of really great qualities, and yet somehow I'm just like, wait, but like let me go talk to this, and like just like not like being aware of like actually what's there in front of you.
right,
So it's like
yeah,
constantly being self-aware. It's a constant process. Um, okay, I have a couple other things. So you think this is where we did kind of disagree. You think that there's
okay,
no difference between loving somebody and being in love with somebody.
right. I think it's just a difference when you add intimacy into it. So it's like, so again, like I was saying
Sexual
before,
intimacy. Sexual intimacy.
are you talking about? So you talking about relationship?
Yes. So like I love, being in love with somebody versus just loving somebody.
But even then, though, like I feel like that again, like the highest form of intimacy is one of the highest forms of intimacy is sex. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't. I really don't. Actually, it was a part in this book here, The Road Less Traveled. Here, so it says the first, let's see, when a person falls in love,
Totally
what
true.
he certainly feels is I love him or I love her, but two problems are immediately apparent. The first is that the experience of falling in love is specifically a sexual linked exotic experience, and then we fall in love only when we are consciously. I don't completely agree with this, but it's kind of in the same vein. We fall in love only when we're consciously or unconsciously sexually motivated. The second problem is that the experience of falling in love is invariably temporary. No matter whom we fall in love with, we sooner or later fall out of love if the relationship continues long enough. Which is not to say that we invariably cease loving the person with whom we fall in love, but it is to say that the feeling of aesthetic loveliness that characterizes the experience of falling in love always passes away. And so again, like, so let's just say me and you were in this loving relationship, like we're intimate, like we're together, we're exclusive in the whole nine. And again, like I was saying before, like if it doesn't work out, then all of a sudden I come to you, you know what, everything that I told you about, everything that I said I loved about you, everything that I said is wonderful about you, I don't feel that way anymore. So then it almost kind of like makes it ingenuous. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so what did you mean? Like, what were you trying to accomplish when you were telling me these things, and all of a sudden you don't mean this? And you're the same person? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I more think of it like, that first like infatuation stage, and I think like you hear about some relationships where they're like in love, or they
Right,
stay in love for 60 years and, whatever.
right,
But I think maybe, and I was doing some reading on this too, I think maybe a lot of it has to do with like the time you were with somebody, And so
right,
like some people really like that first infatuation stage of like being madly in love and those butterflies and all of that, which is like
right,
really fun. And most of the time that doesn't really last. And others prefer just like a deep kind of steady, caring, great, good love that maybe doesn't have all of that. And I think that that's something that changes over time as well.
right. But so something I do kind of defer with this book about that is, again, like we were talking about the sex on the first night thing. Like, who's to say like the infatuation can lead to you spending time with somebody to genuinely getting to know somebody, and then it evolves into like actual love. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's like a one way to get there. You know what I'm saying? So like, yes, I get what you're saying. It can start any way and it get there. Like, we could be friends. You and I could be friends, and like down the road, it's like, oh shit, like
Yeah,
maybe this could be something else. So it could be any way. I'm not saying like it should be a certain way to get to that point.
totally. Okay, so I have just some like kind of fun questions for you. How many times would you say you've been in love? Romantic love?
Honestly, knowing what I know now, like my perspective of love, probably probably never, to be honest. Like there
And
were
and before, like with a different perspective? Like how many times did you think you were in love at the time, maybe?
right. Okay, I would probably say twice. Twice.
Okay.
And I was very young during both of those times. It's ironic because somebody says love at 20 is not the same love when you're 30 versus 40, etc.
You
So
would
yeah, I
hope
didn't.
not. You would hope not,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't. You know, you're a kid. You don't know what's going on out here.
Totally. No, and it makes me think about like how many times I've been in love because I had like serious boyfriends, and now I'm like, wait, like, so it's definitely makes me even think about it too. And I think a lot of somebody wrote when I put it in the questions in the on Instagram, they were like, damn, after reading everybody's like answers, maybe I like am wrong because I was gonna say like 8 or 9, and he was like, maybe it's infatuation. I was like, yeah, maybe.
Right.
Um, so I think I know the answer to this. What makes someone for you realize that you are in love or love somebody? When you feel like you have that vulnerability and you feel like they have a good heart and they're a good person. Is that what your
Right.
answer would be? Yep.
Well,
What is your most attractive quality in a woman for you?
in a in a woman,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I would say resilience and having like a perspective and opinion. Now, I will say, I say those are my most attractive qualities because it's like if it's not there, it completely kills any kind of attraction, even if it's physical. Because it's like for me, it's like how can I get to know you if you don't have an opinion or perspective?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like I know when I'm really starting to get in my feelings about somebody. If I watch a live or if I'm reading a book and I'm thinking like, damn, man, what does Mariah think about this? Or if I watch a movie, like, man, what's her opinion about this? Man, how would she feel about this? And I'm starting to ask you stuff like that. And that's when I know I'm leaning in that direction of like, yo, like I'm starting to catch feelings or whatever. So,
Yeah.
because
No,
I
that's a
think
good one because it's kind of basic, but it's real.
right. And my mind is like, how can a relationship I feel like are designed to help us become better. So it's like if I learn about you and maybe you change, like, so if you ever change my opinion about something, like I'm smitten, like I'm done, like that's the
I
kill
like
switch.
that.
Like if you, yeah, like if I'm, because I'm stubborn as it is. I'm not saying I'm closed minded, but like if you ever change my mind about something, like damn, I've never thought about that. I would look at you different forever, whether it be romantic or not. But if we're dating, like that's the kill switch. Like I'm a puppy at that
Wow.
point.
I like that. I've never really heard that, but it makes a lot of sense. Because
Yeah,
it's, especially when it's like something that you believed for like a really long time, and then suddenly you're like,
right,
wow, like maybe that's changed.
right. Like you've made me better in that moment. So even if it doesn't work, like you kind of left your stamp on my life for the rest of my life. If you imprinted a perspective or idea that you have. Again, you gotta have a perspective, and you gotta be bold enough and confident enough to express it, even if it's
Yeah.
something that I might not agree with at the time.
Yeah. Right, and that's I think what healthy relationships are is two people having their own perspectives and their strong beliefs and respecting the other person's, but not trying to obviously change it. And I think that's the other thing that I would add about like how my definition of love is like supporting somebody's life, like for them to continue to be themselves. It's so obvious too, but like be themselves and go after their dreams and like you're just kind of like a cheer, like you're there with them, but there isn't, you aren't stopping it in any way. Cause I feel like so many times when I was live with my girl the other day, it was like, guys were like, oh, like I want to, like I need to build my whole life up before I find a relationship because she's gonna like damage, or she's not gonna like, I'm not gonna be able to get to my dreams with having a girlfriend or wife or whatever. When it's
It's like
like, wait, actually, it should be the opposite of like, I'm gonna get to my goals and dreams even more because now I have somebody supporting me, you know?
right,
So that's just another thing I think for me is like love is like when somebody's supporting you to reach your
right.
goals.
Yeah, I love that. Like that's like and a healthy like I feel like that's the healthy way of that is when you do that for yourself. So let's just say if we're together and I'm growing and but you're not trying to support me in a way to change me to what you want me to be. It's
Right.
like you just like, yo, like this is where you are and I'm supportive of you. I'm proud of where you're heading at and I believe in you. Like so for me, like the biggest, like honestly, like probably the biggest compliment or motivator that anyone could tell me, like regardless if it's romantic or not, it's like, yo, I believe in you. But if
Yeah.
so we were together and you was like, yo, like I believe in you, like I'm so proud of you, like that would like I would be I don't know, like I would melt, like I'd be like a little kid, you know what I mean? So like that to me is but imagine like having that your entire life.
Well, and
Imagine
that's,
having
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so no, so imagine having that when you face trials and you might not, you know, excel or rise to the occasion, but like, yo, like I still believe in you, I still love in you, you're a great person. Like having that like for the rest of your life, like where you can rely on it to where you don't have to earn it every time. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's like what we all wish we'd gotten from our family and our parents, you know. So many of
Right,
us didn't. And if we had been believed in to like go be whatever we wanted to be and not be told what they want us to be, or you can't do that because of this or that, or you know, whatever. Like if we had been taught that from a really young age, then like imagine, you know,
right,
I mean, I don't know that many people who grew up like with their parents, like or their caretakers, like believing in them and really genuinely supporting them, even if it was like something totally weird and that they didn't want their kid to do. You know what I mean?
right,
But like
right.
seeing them who they are, even as a young person and throughout the years, like I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
So let me ask you, like, so what is your like so what is your top two biggest like turn ons when it comes to like to that? Like the same question you asked me.
turn
Yeah,
turn ons.
like turn ons are what you find attractive as far as like in
Oh
personality.
yeah. Gosh, I should know the answer. I mean, at this point, unfortunately, my bar is, I don't want to say low because in one way it's low, but in another way it's like really high, which is kind of
Okay.
where I'm at right now. I mean, honesty, that one for me, like, I don't
Okay.
care what it is. Like, that one I just need you to be honest no matter what. That one for me. And I think that stems from like being hurt and cheated on and lied to and everything. So that one,
Right.
and just like with your friends, you're just honest, like honesty and willingness, like say it like it is, be honest. That to me is like super
Right.
important. And then yeah, like just having a good heart and really being like in like just putting in the effort and the time and the energy and being able to express yourself.
Right.
I mean, there's kind of a lot of things, but they also are pretty basic, like human things, in my opinion.
But I feel like all of that stuff is like it's not I feel like to get to that point, it's nothing grandiose. Like I feel like all of it is just simple things that people just don't do. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, people can't even like not ghost somebody that you don't even know. I mean, this dating app, well, do you know what I mean? So it's like people can't even do these basic things, or like, hey, I had a nice time. I'd like to see you again. People
Right.
literally can't do these basic things, then like it's of course it's going to be hard, you know.
Right.
Which is why I'm glad that we're like talking about this, you know, and
Right.
even if it's not for anybody, it's for us and for me, and I'm so grateful.
So let me ask you a
Yeah,
question. One more question. So do you feel like you've been in an intimate relationship, like a romantic relationship, where you was close with them as you were with your friends, your closest friend?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, my last relationship was with for a year with this guy in Brazil, And
Okay.
the reason I started dating him was because he was treating me better than I'd ever been treated. Like he, like would just like cherish me and like was like so into me. And I
Right.
never really had that where it was like I was not worried about another girl. He was running to the store to get me water, like just like doing things for me that I'd never experienced, and it was
Right.
beautiful. Um, and then things happened, and who I was, it didn't. It seemed really cool at the beginning, and that's why he really liked me. And it ended up kind of being a thing, like me being really social. I'm so super social, and that
Right.
started. He started to get jealous. Anyways, there was a lot of things, but it
Gotcha.
was beautiful. And I felt like super, like I could totally be myself, and like I am with my friends for sure.
So are you so after that relationship, are you guys still friends? Like,
We are
can you?
actually, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't talk every day, but like
Right.
it's the first, well, second, but the other one took years and years to like of not talking to be okay.
Right.
Where we actually are cool and it's nice and it's great and I
Right.
like wish him all the best and it's like so refreshing. And even a couple guys that I dated in the last like year, like kind of dated for like a month or whatever, we're cool too. But I will tell you why, because we do things like adults. I said, hey, I
Right.
am not really like I've had so much fun, but I just don't feel like this is the right thing for me, or whatever. And it was hard. I didn't want to hurt them. They didn't want to hurt me, but we handled it like adults and
Right.
loving, caring, communicative adults. And now we can be cool. Like one of them lives nearby, and we're like, "Hey, do you want to meet up one night? Like, let's just go out."
Right.
But like
Yeah.
that's it. But we handled it the way you're supposed to, and
Right.
beautiful things happen when you do that. Like
I feel
you
like that's what
know,
it should be. I mean, like just because somebody, 'cause again, like you're never gonna know what a person is meant to be in your life at that time.
right?
But at the same time, like I have friends, lady friends that I've dated, but like it didn't work out. But like we're tight,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
slept in the same bed together. Wasn't like no thought of like sexual or nothing. Like we're like sisters, like
yeah,
brothers.
yeah,
So I feel like, and that's like the most frustrating thing to me about like dating now because it's like we don't know what's going on out here.
yeah.
So it's like at least if we were interested enough in each other to get to this point or even entertain it, and it doesn't work out, well damn, like I don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. That doesn't mean we have to miss out on each other completely. I can still grow
Totally.
with you, learn from you, and but at the same time, it's like this like zero sum game nowadays. It's like all or nothing. It's like either we're going to be together or it's like nothing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So just to close, I'm just wondering what your tips are to people who want to find this deep, real, vulnerable, long-lasting love.
I think a lot of it honestly, it all starts, I feel like, with self love. I think my perspective of people and my optimism with other people is based on how I look at myself. You know what I mean? It's like, they're saying you treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, I feel like that's like kind of in reverse. Like you look at people the way you look at yourself. And so it's like I see good in other people because like I see good in myself. It's not so hard for me to love other people now because I love myself.
Yes.
And so in my mind, it's like when I look at me, it's like, well, damn, I love me. Well, damn, like, what's up with you? Like, what's your talent? Like, what's your gift? Like, what's the good in you? It's like everyone is like a gift to open. You know what I'm saying? I think it all starts with that. A lot of it is just honestly addressing the issues and the trauma and the anxiety that you have within yourself. I mean, it's gonna suck and it's gonna hurt. And it's gonna take a lot of like, like, what's wrong with me? But once you do that though, like, and you kind of open up and you start to accept yourself, kind of like it's love, like you know what I'm saying? It's like loving yourself. Like, yo, this is what's wrong with me. These are things that I don't like about me, but like, yo, like I'm a good person regardless. So you got to start with loving yourself and looking at yourself that way, and then it's easier to look at other people that way. And then it's also when it comes to vulnerability and developing that intimacy, I would say learn about it. It's an audio called "The Power of Vulnerability" by Rene on Audible. Like that blew my brain like wide open. Like it was like she had pretty much like carved my heart out my chest and told me like, yo, like this is what's going on with you, and it was like and put it back in. It was just like open heart surgery, and it was just understanding how vulnerability works. And when you don't, and when you're so scared of being open, it's like you're missing out on just so much more. You know what I mean? And
Right,
so
and that's what this person's saying. You'll attract better the more self-aware you are, which is true. I mean, I even feel
right,
like, I feel that like it it just even little things in your day to day, like just the little things happen, and the people you meet, and just all of these things based on
right,
the things that you're doing for yourself and focusing on your
right,
own goals and dreams. I mean, the amount of money I've spent and time I've spent on therapy and texting guys and trying to deal with these guys that like it wasn't gonna go anywhere, but I was so caught up in something. And
Right.
versus like now where I'm like, you know what, I'd rather do like 3 lives right now than like go do whatever. And I'm feeling like
Right.
way better about it, about
Right.
myself. So even little things like that, you know?
And even like that, I mean, like when you talking about meeting other people, honestly, like if I wasn't who I am now, like I'm almost certain I probably would have never met you. So it's like you were saying, like you attract people that causes to bring people into your life that you probably never would have attracted. And it's not even like this, I'm going out to meet you. It's just like whatever you believe in. I feel like God would do it. You know, some people believe in the universe or whatever. And it's like meeting you will make me better. You know what I'm saying? It's like knowing I have somebody else that I can genuinely connect with, and having another person that I feel like I eventually have the potential to be vulnerable with down the road. Like that takes like the burden off your back. You know what I mean? Like to be able to have like so many people that you can like I can just be me. Like yo, like you might not like it, I don't like it, but
Yeah.
like this is who it is, and be accepted. So the more you have of that, the more love you have. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it normalizes love in a way. It's like you've gotten so conditioned. It's kind of like when you deal with like anxiety and trauma when you're a kid, and you have these defense mechanisms. So every time like, a negative thing happens, oh damn, well, I got to be this way. Well, the same thing on the opposite direction. Well, damn, like Mariah was dope. I was able to open up with her, and we have this great connection. I can be myself, she can be herself with me, and it kind of reinforces your confidence in being able to be vulnerable.
Right, and it inspires other people that you're around to do the same thing, and then you meet the same people who are doing the same things, and then it just like is
Exactly.
like a positive like ladder or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any last words you'd like to say? I don't know if you want to say anything about your Instagram or your podcast.
So my Instagram is deactivated right now. But you can check out Forbidden Fruit Podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, all the major platforms. Right now, I have the Knowledge of Conscious Parenting, where I tell about a critical mistake that I made when I came to dealing with my son. Also, the Knowledge of Love, which is kind of led to this conversation. But really want everyone's opinion on is on the 15th, I'll release the knowledge of adult attachment theory, and that kind of goes into the psychological aspect of why we're attracted to the people that we are, and specifically like why are some people addicted to like negative types of relationships. And it's like a psychological, like scientific explanation behind it that a good friend of mine that I met, honestly, I met through a dating app, and it
There
didn't
you
work
go.
out because she was too far. She was too far out, but we're like homies now. And her relationship right now, if she met after me, is like so beautiful. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like what I want is what she has. And so now, although the relationship didn't work out, like now I have this great person in my life that I can learn from, and I can see her relationship blossom and grow.
Yeah.
And it's
And
beautiful. So
attachment theory is huge. I've studied that, and any therapist you go to, it all stems from somewhere. All of this.
right,
I think that's where it really comes in. It's scary and it's a lot of work and it's never ending,
right,
but you have to be aware of it, or we do just keep repeating the same cycles. And I think that
right.
that's just the real truth of it. So
Yeah, I'm about to send it to you when we get off, and you can preview it and let me know what you think.
cool. Sounds good. Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about something else sometime because that would be nice.
Yeah, I'll be down.
Cool. Thank you to the people who were on there, my homies. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
Bye.
Bye.